that plants can do photosynthesis, animals cannot. Am I right? So what is
Yes,
this
sir.
photosynthesis? What is this word photosynthesis? There are two words in this. So biologically, let's go to the two words, photo and synthesis. What does the word photo means?
Light.
Okay, photo means light. So when you click photos, you're actually clicking light, right? Yes, physically you are clicking light. So if light is not there, will you be able to? So you are clicking, let's say, a picture in a room, and I switch off the light and it's night. Will you be able to click a picture? Now you don't say that I have night sensitive cameras fitted in my very super sophisticated mobile phone. That's a different thing, but these days there are cameras that work very good even in low light conditions, but they have actually optimized for that light. What they do is they increase the aperture and the time of that exposure. That's called night light photography. That's different. But we can only see or capture things because these photons, the word photon also photo comes from photons. Photons are small light packets which reaches our eyes and then gives, because of which we can see substances. So if light is not there, we cannot see anything. And what do we mean by synthesis? Synthesize word comes from synthesis.
Making food.
How do you know it's making food? You can synthesize chemical drugs, you can synthesize anything. Paint you cannot eat. Synthesize just means to make or to produce. Now, are they producing light? So photosynthesis means to produce light. Am I interpreting it correct? That plants produce light?
Plants make their food by using light. The
Yes,
sun
so
rays.
plants produce something in the presence of light, right? So light here is the energy source, and they are producing something. Now, what is that something? Already has been answered. They are producing their food. Now, what is their food? Biryani, pulao, kheer, sheer. What do they like? What do plants cook? Chapatis, paratha, aloo paratha. What are they cooking? Because this food concept was introduced by Waziha. Waziha, what are plant cooking in the presence of light, in sunlight? I don't think that we can even boil and or we can make a half boiled in sunlight. What are they cooking?
They are cooking glucose, maybe.
They are cooking glucose. Okay, so why can't they have glucose raw? Why are they cooking it?
Because they need to absorb it.
Yeah, so
And they
by
cannot
cooking,
absorb it raw.
no, actually glucose is not cooked. Glucose is always glucose. Even when we cook something which contains glucose, glucose stays as glucose. We just cook food. Humans cook food to make the food soft. And if it is softer, we can chew it, digest it better, and we can unlock more nutrients. So the difference between a raw food and a cooked food is that we can access more nutrients from a cooked food than from a raw food. That's all the difference is. But glucose in a raw food also is glucose, and it remains the glucose in the cooked food as well. Amino acids also stay the same. It's not like cooking makes new nutrients. Cooking makes availability of nutrients easier. Okay, so when plants are not cooking, they are just synthesizing. So you are right, in the presence of light they are synthesizing glucose. Now, so let's first define photosynthesis. Write down: photosynthesis is a physiochemical process. What do I mean by physiochemical process? Just two words, physio and chemical. Come on, just say something. Hypothesis, even if you're wrong, it does not matter. None of us knew. Like I also learned it, right? Just like you. So I'm not going to judge it. Oh, she does not know. Oh, Devangi gave a wrong answer. It's okay. I have given a lot of wrong answers when I was your age. And to be very honest, I was not as smart as you people are. So I'm not at all going to judge you. You just need to speak. You know, if you are hesitant in giving answers, you will never be able to give right answers. Even if the right answer is sitting right at the tip of your tongue, you will not give it because you will always doubt what if it's wrong. You will wait for someone to give the answer. So give the answer. What do you think is physiochemical? It has two words, physio and chemical. How difficult it is.
So something that is
yes.
related with physics and chemistry.
Yes, the chemistry part is right, but the physio is coming from physiology, not from physics. Okay. So physiochemicals means physiology is what makes sense inside living systems. So how living systems operate, how living systems work, what happens, how diseases happen, how we cure them, how our body functions, how we digest, respire, eat, reproduce. They are all physiological functions. Physiotherapy, have you seen of the term physiotherapy? Physiotherapy. Yes, what happens in physiotherapy? Who's a physiotherapist? A physiotherapist does not teaches you physics, right? That's your physics teacher. A physicist. There are few words which are very confusing and interesting. What does this word means?
Physician.
A person who studies physics. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
No, I'm wrong.
What? What?
The person who study about human physiology, human system, body system.
Okay, then who's this third one? Physician, physicist, physiotherapist. Who are these people? Are they all different or all the same?
They're different, sir.
Who's a physician who studies physics, right? Then who's a physicist? Physician is your doctor. You go to a doctor with an MBBS degree, you will become a physician if you do MBBS. A generalized doctor is physician. You can also call the doctor clinician because he sits in the clinic. He knows about your clinical disorders. Physicist is the one who studies physics, a scientist. Physics scientist or a researcher is physicist, biologist, physicist. Physician is doctor, and physiotherapist is physique therapist, who gives therapy about your physique. Like if there's a pain in your body, if you are recovering from a broken bone, a fracture, if you're recovering from a bedridden disease, your body is weak, then everything related to your body which is getting weaker, so mostly related to your organs and muscles, that physiotherapist help you. If you fell and broke your hip girdle and could not walk for 6 months after your fracture recovered, it's not like next day you will jump out of bed and start dancing. You need a physiotherapist session to again start moving, because for 6 months you could not move at all. You were on a wheelchair, so it becomes difficult to move and walk again. Okay, so physiotherapist will help you with that to ease pain and other things. So physiochemical means a process which is happening, which makes sense physiologically. So this whole unit is called plant physiology. We are studying about how biology happens in plants, in plant cells. Okay. Yes, thank you so much, Yusuf. This is my job, that's why I'm here. So Yusuf is just praising me for my explanation, and I'm flattered. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you understood the difference. Okay. So physiochemical process makes sense physiologically, but it's a chemical process. It's hard. It can be explained by chemistry and by chemical formula and equations. That's why it's called physiochemical process. Now let me erase this part. I think this part is clear. I can erase this, right? Physician, physicist, and physiotherapist. Yeah. Okay. So write down a physiochemical process by which plants use the light energy to synthesize organic compound like glucose in their cells, in a plant cell. So this is photosynthesis. In the presence of light, which means photo, you are synthesizing glucose. Now, anyone knows the formula for glucose? What is a glucose molecule?
C6H12O6.
C6H12O6, right? So I can say that there are 6 carbons. So it's a 6 carbon molecule, right? Is it clear? 6 carbon, 12 hydrogen, 6 oxygens, C6H12O6. Now, to produce this, what elements do you need? What are the elements present in glucose? Carbon is there, hydrogen is there, and oxygen is there, correct? It's like we are just teasing out to make a biryani what all components you need. So glucose is made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So plant is making glucose in the presence of light energy. Now, which of the following light energy provides? Does light provides carbon?
Oxygen.
Light provides oxygen. How can light provide oxygen? Light provides nothing. Light is an electromagnetic radiation. It's an energy source. It's like heat, and light causes heat effect. If you are standing in the sun for very long looking at the sun, your face gets warm. I do this a lot, especially during the winters. I love the winter sun. I just look up at the sun and close my eyes and soak all the heat. So light, there's another misconception. People think that if you sit in the sun, you will get vitamin D. So people think that we get vitamin D from the sun. So sun is sending vitamin D to us as love. My fellow earthlings, take vitamin D from me. Sun is not a reservoir of vitamin D. Sun only provides energy, okay? Heat energy and light energy. That energy is required by our cells present in our skin. They absorb that energy and use that heat and heat energy basically to drive equations. Sorry, to drive reactions, chemical reactions. And these chemical reactions, so every raw material that is required to produce vitamin D is present or has to be present in the cell. All it needs is energy. So you have rice, you have peas, you have carrots, you have capsicum, you have chicken pieces, everything with you. But to make a biryani, let's say, or a pulao, let's say, you need energy. You need either induction, which runs on electricity, or a gas stove, which runs on a fuel. You need fire or heat, correct? To cook it. Do you understand, everyone? Now, fire or
Yes,
heat
sir.
or induction is not giving you nutrients. It's not giving you rice or any component that you eat actually. It's just giving you energy to do that chemical work. Cooking is also a chemical work. So similarly here, to make glucose, we need carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, none of which is coming from light. Similarly, none of what needs to make vitamin D is coming from sun. It's coming, only energy is coming. So our skin has a compound which is called precursor of vitamin D that gets activated and cause chemical reaction in the presence of sunlight and gets converted into vitamin D. So when you sit in the sun, when you soak in the sun, your body makes more vitamin D, but that's your body which is making vitamin D. You're not getting it from the sun. Everyone clear? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Very good. So here to make this C6H12O6, this glucose molecule, where is carbon coming from? Let's figure out the sources. Where is carbon coming from? Right from your junior classes. So this is one thing where we study biology, but we just learn it, memorize it. And I've seen this problem with teachers in schools as well, not just in school, but in general. They don't teach you to make you understand the nature. They just teach you to get good marks. Just remember the definition of photosynthesis and the equation and go and write it. They don't teach you how to make the equation yourself. Some first person who figured out this equation made it, right? It becomes very easy when we are teaching you the equation for for that matter, you all know how do we find the force due to gravity, right? F is equal to G m1 m2 upon r square. This formula you must have studied in your physics, correct? Where this is a constant, correct? But I'm not sure if how many of you know how to come to this formula. If I give you a planet A and a planet small satellite B, and if I ask you to find out the gravitational force between them, will you be able to derive this formula? Know that where it is coming from, how it is coming, why it depends on the inverse of square of the distance between them, and what is its application? Just to remember it and go and write it in exam. And when in the numericals, it will be given that m is 60, m2 is 40, g is constant, r is this, then calculate, do the maths. That's not the only application of it, you know. Similarly, for biology also, let's figure it out. What is the carbon source present readily available to plant? If you are a plant, you are looking for carbon, think like that. You want to make a biryani as a human, so you will go to the supermarket, get rice, get chicken, get the masala, spices, and make sure that you have an energy source, which is either a gas stove or an induction, and a vessel, of course, and water. We'll get it all, start cooking. Now you are a plant, you have to do photosynthesis. Which supermarket can you go to figure out carbon? Oh, sorry, you cannot go to a supermarket. You are a plant. You are rooted, you have roots. So you cannot move. Oh, but you still have to make glucose. Where will you find carbon? Come on, plants.
Carbon dioxide.
Perfect.
From
Devangi figured out CO2 is present in the air everywhere and it has something called carbon in it. So I can get this carbon. But it also gives you a added benefit, right, Devangi? It also has,
Oxygen.
so you needed oxygen, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's great. So you got carbon and you got oxygen from CO2. Where will you get hydrogen from?
From the water.
From the water, right? Very good.
Yes.
Yes, so roots can absorb water for you, and CO2 can be absorbed by the plant through stomata, gaseous exchange in the leaves, and you get carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. But you know, your water also has oxygen. What will you do to this oxygen? Which oxygen will you use? to make CO2, so to make glucose, and which one will you not use and leave? This was what one scientist figured out, and you all are going to do it with me. So now let's see. We all know right from the beginning, like from junior classes, that plants take CO2 from the roots, from the leaves as a gaseous exchange. They take water from the roots, and they do something magical in their green parts in the presence of light, which acts as an energy source, and they end up making glucose, which is stored in their fruits, and then we go pluck the fruits, pluck the plants, and eat it for our energy. Okay, so is that it, or I'm missing something? We are trying to make the equation for photosynthesis. Is this complete, or I'm missing something? People, Devangi, Yusuf.
Sir, they also release water and oxygen.
They release water and oxygen, but water so they are absorbing. No, why will they release water?
They just release oxygen.
Okay, they release oxygen as gas, right? So O2, gaseous form of oxygen is O2, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the complete chemical reaction. CO2 plus water in the presence of light. Am I forgetting something, or is it complete?
H2O.
What H2O?
They also produce H2O.
Why do they produce H2O? If they can produce H2O, why are they absorbing H2O in the first place? That's where we just read the books, remember it, but it makes no sense to us. Is it making sense to you that I'm
No.
absorbing H2O from the roots, then I'm also producing and releasing H2O? Then why am I absorbing H2O if I can produce H2O?
Mm.
A big Yusuf's like, good question. You're right. Books, and if you go and look at this equation, and if you go and figure out any book, even NCERT, they will tell you that they release water, but they don't tell you where that water comes from. Like you said, everyone thinks they produce water. They don't produce water. They just absorb more than they required. If they absorb, so you drink more water than your body needs. So what do you do to the extra water every day? Humans do that every day, 5 to 10 times a day. What do we do to extra water? We urinate. We make urine, right? We sweat, produce sweat, tears, mucus, saliva. All that also requires water, yes? Yes or no? Do you understand, or I'm just talking to the screen?
Yes,
Which
sir.
I am actually.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's write H2O. Now, am I still missing something, or it's complete?
Balancing, sir.
No, apart from that, balancing will do. That's where you will realize that what's happening. But I am missing one important thing, which is it should all be done in the presence of chlorophyll, right? If there is no chlorophyll, we cannot do photosynthesis. That's why only green parts of the plants do photosynthesis. We have studied from junior classes, green parts like leaves do photosynthesis, but no one asks why, because they have chlorophyll. So if you'll ask why, so what I don't like is that our system is made to keep feeding us with answers. So photosynthesis happens. You're like, okay. By the time you're processing photosynthesis, they'll be like, it happened in plants. You're like, okay. By the time you're processing that, they'll be like, it happened in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll. And if you ask why only in plants and why not in animals, see, this you will study in higher classes. So this one line, I was atrociously fed up. Like, So they used to tell that this you're going to study in higher classes. Then after 12, there was no classes. I went to the college and I realized, so this is the higher class, not teach me. Then it is not in the syllabus at all. Then to know that you have to come into research and start doing BSc, MSc, and then a PhD. Still some things we don't know about, but we never give kids the freedom to ask. We are trained to not ask questions and to only remember answers. Go in the like there is no exam nowhere. If I would set up a paper, I will keep 3 marks at every end of every paper, that write a question of your own. Why are we only made to write answers? Because we are trained to know answers, and that's how we judge students. Who's the most intelligent student? The most intelligent student happens to be the one who knows the most answers and give the most correct answers. This is how we select doctors, this is how we select engineers or scientists. And then we end up saying that why our system is not moving forward, why are we not. If you see the trend, early scientists, just one second, early scientists were asking more questions than giving answers. But now it's expected from scientists, good students, toppers, to give more answers than ask questions. That's wrong. That's where we lack. So what is there about chlorophyll that only green parts of the plant can do photosynthesis? It's not entirely true that only green parts can do photosynthesis. Other parts also do photosynthesis. It's not as efficient as the green parts, because there are 3 types of chlorophyll, which I'm going to teach you. And the most amazing part is these 3 chlorophylls are mentioned in your NCERT, chlorophyll A, B, and C. Also, their spectrum is mentioned in the NCERT. But still, even after reading this whole chapter, if I ask someone in the graduate, like in a BSc, that where does photosynthesis happens, they will say in the green parts of the plants. And I'm like, okay. Photosynthesis happens where chlorophyll is present and where light is there. And another misconception is that only sunlight can drive photosynthesis, right? It's not true. Any light, even if an artificial source of light, if it matches the wavelength at which chlorophyll gets activated to work, and which is enough to do the reaction which I'll be talking about in a moment, photosynthesis will happen. It is just a chemical process happening in plant. We invented light bulb very late. Before that, the plants were using sunlight. But it is possible to grow plants inside a room as well if you provide them with optimum light of optimum wavelength. So CO2 plus H2O in the presence of light and chlorophyll gives rise to C6H12O6, which is glucose, oxygen, which is gaseous, and water. Now, can someone please balance it quickly and tell me what is the balanced equation? Just balancing.
Three CO2.
Yes, Aisha, tell me. 6 CO2 or 3 CO2?
6H2.
Okay, 6 H2O. Anyone? Yusuf, do you believe otherwise? Why are you silent now? Okay. Oh yeah, Vaziha is asking, I did not complete why photosynthesis is only in plants and not in animals. Yes, Vaziha, because animals don't have chlorophyll. Okay, but that's not entirely true. There are not animals, but there are some organisms which neither fit in plant category properly nor in animals, because they do both. What plants don't do is active movement and finding the food and attacking the food and killing the food. That's a property of an animal cell or an animal. What animals don't do is photosynthesize, but there are certain life forms which do both. During the day, they do photosynthesis, or during night conditions or dark conditions, when they do not get optimum light energy, they can predate as animals. We'll talk about those animals, those kind of living systems as well. But anything which can have chlorophyll can do photosynthesis. That chlorophyll, it's not like if you take chlorophyll and put it, inject in my cells will start doing photosynthesis. Anything that has evolved, any system that has evolved in nature to have chlorophyll can do photosynthesis. Does it make sense to you, Wazia?
Sir, but why we cannot do photosynthesis as we have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, and as well as the sunlight we absorb?
We don't have chlorophyll in our body, no? That's why.
Oh,
So if chlorophyll is the most important molecule that actually absorbs this light and converts it into, so light is a physical energy, right? It's physical. So we have to take light and convert it into chemical usable form, where in our cells chemical reactions can happen. So we do not have any compound in our cell which can harvest the light energy. That's why we cannot do photosynthesis. Make sense, Wazia?
yes.
Okay. So please balance the reaction. No one has balanced it.
6O2.
6O2. You have to
12
speak, Yusuf.
12H2O.
12H2. What?
No, left side.
Left side 12H2?
Yes, sir.
But I think Iram said 6H2. You both have to reach a consensus and then I'll write that only. Now, either you convince Iram that there has to be 12H2 or either Iram convinces you that there has to be 6H2. Whoever feels that their
Am I
their
wrong?
answer, you're asking to Iram. Iram will say yes. Believe me. So don't
No,
ask.
I mean, she's smarter than me, so I think she's.
That's where
She's
you,
right.
you know, that's not how we fight scientific debates. You cannot say I'm dumb. You're gone. Iram is already like, okay, so if you're dumb, just dumb. You said that there has to be a 12H2 here.
Yes.
Why? You just convince Iram. Yes, that's how we debate. What is your rationale to believe there is 12?
Because in the right side there will be 6H2O.
Okay. What if I put 6 here in the right side? I don't put 6. Isn't that balanced?
No, that's not balanced.
That's not balanced. Okay. So you are saying that there has to be 12H2 here. I'm so sorry. I'll write it again. There has to be 12H2 here. And then I should write, what should I write here? 6H2 here. And what should I write here?
Nothing. As it is.
Nothing. So nothing means 1, right?
Yeah.
It cannot be 0. So you're saying this is a balanced equation. Iram, do you agree? Are you convinced? And others? Is Yusuf right? Scientifically and mathematically? And in science, if we are wrong, we have to admit our mistakes very proudly. Let me tell you one example which will never make you feel ashamed when you do mistakes in science. You all know Stephen Hawking? Yes, Iram. Before we go there,
I think yes. This is correct. I feel so.
this is correct. Okay, very good. So it's been, Yusuf, you're not that dumb as you feel you are. Okay, so stop feeling that you're dumb. First thing.
Okay, sir.
Second, No, you should thank Iram. She proved that you're not dumb. Second thing, you all know about Stephen Hawking?
Yes, sir.
You know, Stephen Hawking did his PhD research. And while his PhD research, he used to believe something about the nature of universe and black holes. So he wrote a paper. He got a PhD. He proved, he gave a hypothesis, tried to prove it mathematically, got his PhD done. He went on later on in his life to disprove his own PhD. Hello everyone, am I audible and visible? Sorry, I lost the internet connection. There was a glitch. Am I audible, everyone?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Someone of you might be the host. Can you make me the co-host? Who's the host? Anyone? Please check.
Aisha, sir.
Sir, I am the host.
Yes. So please make me the co-host. You can still be the host, Aisha. You anyways own the class, so you own the class as much as I do. But please, please make me the co-host. Oh, thank you so much. I was wondering if Aisha starts trading off. I can make you the co-host, but you know, in the next exam, I need some good marks, something like that. Okay, anyways, jokes apart, let's come back. So I was telling you, never hesitate to be wrong in science. And if you're wrong in science and you realized why you were wrong, just proudly own it. You know that I was wrong and this is right. Because I was telling you, Stephen Hawking thought something about the universe and the black hole dynamics. And he later on went to disprove his own theory to prove something else. And he just said that I was wrong. So he got his thesis out and his degree out from thinking something which was wrong. It was not that was not the only thing he thought and got his degree on the basis of, but it was one of the things which was wrong. So because when science is developing, another example is who's the father of biology? Who's father of biology? Whom do we call father of biology? You know that? Who
Sir,
started?
Aristotle.
Aristotle. Aristotle is known as father of biology because he started looking at natural world and living systems when there was no concept of biology as a subject. So he is known as father of biology. He was a natural philosopher. He used to write about the natural world, living systems, life. You know, more than 70% of his things which he said, his theories, his principles, either have been disproven or not used in modern science. So why we still call him father of biology? Why don't we change the father of biology to someone who's more knowledgeable, who knows lots of right things? For example, your biology teacher, which happens to be me. Why I am not the father of biology or you are not the father of biology? We for sure know more than Aristotle. Why?
Because he
He said so
discovered
many wrong things.
he
He
discovered
discovered
biology.
he discovered all wrong things. No one can discover biology. Biology was always there. You cannot discover light. No one discovered light. Newton did not discover that, you know, he discovered that there is gravity. He didn't bring it in place. So even before Newton started studying living a natural world, they all existed. So we still respect them and call them fathers, pioneers of the field, because they started thinking. They started asking questions. You understand, everyone? They tried to give answers. They were wrong at times and they admitted it wrong. But someone being wrong in science does not mean that person is not worthy or a great scientist or a thinker. So if you are wrong, just learn from it and own it. Yes. Oh, I was wrong, you know. This is why I was wrong. And this is the correct thing. So just trying to put hesitation out of you. Also, never hesitate to give yes, but don't be adamant if you're wrong. You know, don't bluff in science is one thing I will tell you. So don't be wrong and just say that no, this is right. Say that I think this happens and say it with conviction and confidence. And if you are proven wrong, then say, oh, okay, so I was wrong. You know, and a great thing, celebrate it, just like Stephen Hawking did. Anyways, so coming to, thank you so much, Yusuf. Coming to the equation, so this is the equation of photosynthesis, and it tells you, which we were discussing in the beginning, look at the number of water molecules being absorbed by the plant. How many? To make one molecule of glucose, how many water molecules do a plant, it's a ratio, right? How many water molecules are the plant is absorbing to make one molecule of glucose? 12, correct? But how many does it actually need?
6.
6, because the 6, it is just removing out. So if I write this equation as 6, sorry, it was a black ink, I don't like that. If I write it as 6 CO2 plus 6 H2O in the presence of light and chlorophyll to produce one molecule of glucose and 6 oxygen. Is this wrong? Think about it. Is this wrong?
No.
No, sir.
What do you think? Yes, no, chemically, is this wrong?
It's
Can I
correct.
say something? Yeah, it's correct, right? Chemically, you can just cancel 6 CO2 with 6 CO2, sorry, 6 H2O with 6 H2O here and reach to this equation, correct? But since we know that plant always take up more water than it required, because this is also an important thing. Why is taking more water and then releasing water is important? We will come to know later on when we'll study deeper in this plant physiology, but just know that the water is also released out. Okay, so this is also not wrong, but this is more correct version of the process. Is it clear, everyone? In
Yes, sir.
biology, sometimes it's not that between two options one will be wrong and one will be right all the time. What happens is one depicts a better version, a better answer than the other. So we have to choose the most correct or the least wrong also in entrances. So just remember this thing. Sometimes none of the answers or none of the options in an entrance, I'll show you some questions like that, where none of the options seem very, very convincing. Like, oh, this is none of this looks like a right answer. But then you read carefully, you will realize, oh, this is the most, this is the least incorrect. So the most correct picture, it portrays the most correct picture among the four given options. So you choose that one. Is it clear? So in biology, in chemistry, chemically, this is as relevant as this. But in biology, we know that water molecules are also released out from stomatal pore and openings. This projects a better biological picture, this equation. That's why the above equation is better than the equation below. Okay, everyone?
Yes.
Because in this also everything is balanced. If you look carefully, everything is balanced. Now, coming to the part where I was asking, where does, okay, now my next question is this, look at, where is this oxygen coming from, which is being released? Is it coming from this oxygen here or this oxygen here?
From
We know that
CO2.
out of CO2 also has oxygen. From CO2. Okay, one answer is from CO2. Very good. So we know that. Why do you think it's coming from CO2? Because you think, okay, it's already in the O2 form and 6 are also there. So just take carbon and remove the oxygen, right? That will be your rationale. If I'm not wrong. What was your rationale? Is it different from what I'm saying?
Yes, it is.
It is, right? Because it was my rationale also when I was in the same class thinking about the process. It makes it it looks more convenient. So the question you understood, there are two oxygen species with water also, with carbon also. We are using some oxygen and releasing the other. We are using half and releasing the half, just like water. For this water, we know that it's coming from here, but where is this oxygen coming from? Now, it was not known. Okay, so scientists did some, how will you prove? How will you, if you are the scientist, how will you prove where it is coming from? Think for a moment. I'll just take a quick break and I'll be back. Okay. Think, how will you figure out if it is coming from CO2, this oxygen, or it's coming from H2O? I'll just be back in one. Okay, everyone's there? Scientist, you have to be scientific. Now, if you have to prove whether it's coming from water or from CO2, what will you do as a scientist? if you were to prove that. Let me go to Iram, the most seasoned scientist in this class. Seasoned means she has spent the most time. That's all. It's not like someone who has not spent the most time cannot find the answer. So after Iram, I will go to Waziha.
Sir, I think it comes from both. It can be from CO2 and it can be from O2.
Figure out. By the way, this is the oxygen that we breathe in and maintain the oxygen concentration. Yes, Iram. How will you solve this? Any idea in your head? No idea. Or you are not speaking. Waziha.
So can't think of
Okay.
one right now.
Okay. So the question is very simple. Whenever I ask something, whenever anyone asks anything in science, it looks intimidating because you look at, oh, molecules, oh, my brain is clogged. If you want, so there is, you have, let's say, two people living with you in your flat. So you're sharing your flat with two flatmates. And every time, this is a classic. So this is an example that's currently happening with me. So I'm giving the example. Every time when you come come every evening to your flat, you see that the Wi-Fi is switched off. And you know that you are not doing it. So someone is switching off the Wi-Fi. How will you figure out which of your two flatmates, CO2 or H2O? Let's name them CO2 and H2O. And every time I'm coming, I'm seeing that the Wi-Fi is released, switched off. Who's switching off the Wi-Fi? How will I figure out? It's actual real life problem that I'm going through right now. I hope they're not listening to me. Yes. They're like, you are bitching about us to your students. Okay. Anyways, how will you figure out? Iram? This is a simple thing. You don't have to be a scientist to figure this out.
We will have to like watch over them. Or, like
watch over them. Okay. Okay.
Have a CCTV camera or something.
Yes. Good. We can do that.
So
But
you
let's
have to
now.
ask them.
I have to ask them. All these are very humanitarian answers. So remember, we named them CO2 and H2O. One of my flatmate is carbon dioxide. One of my flatmate is H2O. I cannot talk to them or I cannot watch over them because I also have my own work, right? I have to make glucose. Any other way?
We
Just
can
logical.
like check the fingerprints and match with theirs.
Okay. Let me give you a hint. Next week, one of my batchmate is going home. Does that give you something? Some hint?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Wazia,
Yes.
you will solve this. Can I do an experiment next week and figure out who switched off the Wi-Fi every time?
Yes, sir. If it is switched off, then who live with you? He's
Perfect. You all are scientists. See, this is what one scientist did. And his name was, so there are some series of experiments that I have to teach you that many scientists did. They are called early experiments in photosynthesis. So there was a scientist called Cornelius von Neil. He did the same thing. He solved so next week I will get to know which of my roommates actually switches off the Wi-Fi. Then I can go and talk to them. Hey, why do you switch off the Wi-Fi? And then I will like, I know that you do it. Because when the other one, let's say H2O, will go home, The only one present with oxygen, or the only one present with fingers who can switch off the Wi-Fi is CO2. So if I for the whole week gets my Wi-Fi not switched off, then it's not CO2, right? Then it's H2O, because when he left, no Wi-Fi switching off. But if still Wi-Fi switching off happens, then it's CO2. Yes or no? Now don't ask the real names of my flatmates. Just for the personal confidentiality. But you solved the problem. So what Cornelius Van Niel did was, instead of H2O, he just wanted to remove oxygen. So instead of H2O, he used H2S, because that's readily available. H2S is just like water. H2S is dihydrogen sulfide. It's a gaseous thing which you can give to plants instead of CO2. So when you replaced H2O with H2S, okay, so the equation became CO2 plus H2S in the presence of light and chlorophyll A. He saw that photosynthesis actually happens. So we get C6H12O6, but no oxygen is released, no O2 release. Now what does it tells you? Instead, what was released was S2. Sulfur as a gas was released, not oxygen. So what does it tell you? Where is this oxygen coming from?
H2O, sir.
H2S. H2.
Coming from water. So water is providing for that oxygen, which is being released in photosynthesis, but not CO2. So the CO2, this oxygen, is here. Okay, it's not released, and the oxygen which is released is coming from water. You figured out how he solved this, just like Vazia solved my problem. And next week I'm going to do this. Next week I will be Von Neil.
Sir,
Yes.
I
Yes,
have
Vazia.
another 2 reasons.
Yes, tell me.
We studied that the glucose is made up of three molecules: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So I was thinking that carbon is complete, so he can it can lose oxygen, but H2O is water, and plants need water now. So I was thinking that CO2 release oxygen.
Yes, that is a very amazing, like, logical thought process, and even earlier scientists thought that. That's why when Von Neil proved that it's not CO2 but it's water that releases oxygen, everyone's like, what are you saying? Just like every time when we investigate, facts does not come up like we think. I also think that CO2 must be doing this. One of my flatmate, remember, we just code named him CO2. But maybe next week I'll figure out that it's H2O for me as well. Correct?
Sir, I have another reason, one more reason.
Yeah. So this reason is disproved the moment we replaced H2O with H2S. What is your another reason? Yes.
I have another reason, that H2O in the presence of sunlight, it will release O2. That we heard that if we boil water, then it releases steam. So in the form of gaseous form, it releases oxygen, I think.
Yes. So this is again another thought process that very early people might have thought, but steam is not oxygen. Steam is water only. Steam is a form of H2O. So H2O has 3 forms: solid, which is ice, then a liquid form, which is water, and then a solid, and a gaseous form, which we call as water vapor or steam, and then solid. So all are, this is H2O, this is H2O, and this is H2O. So when you boil water, it does not releases oxygen. The whole H2O becomes gas. Is it clear, Vazia?
Yes, sir.
Yes. But as Yusuf is saying in the chat that, oh, it's a direct message to me, that Wazia is definitely a scientist. You all are. I'm telling you, like, you are way smarter than me when I was in your age, when I was your age. Okay, so clearly, you should all be very. But the thought process also have to be checked scientifically. So Waziha's one thought process makes sense, which exactly is the topic that I will discuss now. The other thought process is not correct because she needs to know that even in a steam form, it is H2O only. In ice also it is H2O, in water also it is H2O, and in steam also it is H2O. So it's not releasing oxygen. Okay.
Yes, sir.
But good. Now, my next, so do you understand this equation and which component gives the oxygen to be released? The water. Now, when von Neil figured that out, people started, so in science, whenever we solve one question, 10 more arise. That is the nature of science. It's like a domino effect. You never end a field. It will never happen, never ever it will happen that someone will say, okay, now in this field for plant physiology, we have answered all the questions and the chapter book closed. So from now onwards, there will be no one studying plant physiology because we now know everything. No, it's never going to happen. So when he figured out that oxygen is given by water and CO2 does not get split, next question was, then how does water split? And how does CO2, whose all the valencies are already satisfied, like Wazia said, if you make a CO2 is like C double bond O and double bond O, right? Carbon can make 4 bonds, 4 valencies, all are satisfied. What's happening then? Why is this reacting? Whereas water, who's H2O, so in here, it's making H, 2 bonds, but how many bonds oxygen can maximum make? 2 only. So this is also satisfied, right? Why is this releasing out oxygen and this is not releasing out oxygen? So it turns out to be that more questions started coming up than the answers. So next point is, what leads to splitting of water? This is where the deeper knowledge about photosynthesis comes into picture. Now, the splitting of water happens because of a reaction. So write down. Oh, before you write that down, let me today tell you about the experiment. So write down early experiments to explore photosynthesis. Let's spend some time there. This is clear, everyone? But how we reached till this knowledge? So these experiments can be asked both in entrances, not in boards. I've never coming in boards, so that's why we will. So first you have to remember is Joseph Presley. Joseph Presley. He was as smart as all of you are. He wanted to figure out very early, back in 1770. This is the 18th century, in 21st century. So in the 18th century, he wanted to figure out that there is something that plants release that is very, very important for life. Okay. And there is something that fire for life. So he did some experiments which are very crucial also, observatory experiments. He knew nothing about oxygen, can anyone I'm just curious, like I can be wrong also, but can you hear me, everyone? Am I audible?
Sir, I didn't hear your question because you are lacking. Your screen was lacking.
Okay, is my voice? Yes, okay. I also got this notification that my Wi-Fi is lagging. Unstable
Yeah.
network. Is it fine now? I've switched off my video. Can you hear my audio correct clearly?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. I'm asking, can anyone do a quick search and tell me when was oxygen discovered as an element? When did people know that there is oxygen?
1774.
1774.
There's an element. 17?
74.
74.
1774. Yes. 1774. And can anyone tell me the name who discovered oxygen? Who discovered oxygen? Am I audible?
Joseph Priestley.
Joseph Priestley, right? He only discovered oxygen in 1774. I was just thinking the same. Because before he did this experiment, no one knew that there's something like oxygen which is important to live. Now, can you imagine what a great discovery he did just by an experiment which is very simple? So let's see what was the experiment. So it took a glass bell shaped, okay, and inside he put a candle and burnt it. So now this glass jar is kind of a
Sir.
microelement, and he put a
Sir,
mouse.
sir, your
Yes, tell me.
your voice is still cracking. You are
Is
not
it still cracking, everyone?
Yes, sir. It's lagging.
Let me let 1 second. Hello, am I audible to everyone? Hello, hello, hello. Am I audible, people?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, very good. Finally. Okay, so I'll keep my video off. Probably I'm on a low bandwidth. Okay. So what? I'm clearly audible, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, so in early experiments, first is Joseph Priestley. We were discussing. He discovered oxygen in 1774. But for 4 years, he actually was figuring out. In 1770, he did this experiment where he kept a mouse with a burning candle covered with a glass lid. Okay. And after some time, what he observed was that this mouse died. Okay. Now, the mouse did not die because the mouse caught fire from the candle or because of heat or something, but he figured out that the mouse started behaving like as if the mouse is choking, and then the mouse died. Okay, is it clear?
Yes,
Then
sir.
he did another experiment. He took the same glass vial, he put a candle, he again put a mouse, but this time he also, along with the candle, put a plant, okay, inside the jar. So there's a candle, a plant, and a mouse. And in this case, the mouse did not die. So the mouse lived. After the same time, the mouse lived. Now, based on this observation, he very intelligently said that there is something that this candle, and what in a candle? Fire. So there's something that fire utilizes. We know that fire uses oxygen to burn. In your chemistry, you have studied combustion reaction. Have you studied combustion reaction, people?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So we are using the same thing here. What is combustion? Burning in the presence of oxygen is called combustion, correct? So fire cannot happen or cannot spread or continue if you cut oxygen off. That's how we can also get like control fire. So fire extinguishers, which with foam and CO2, what do? They cut off the oxygen supply. That's how you can get that fire out or off, right? You don't have to put water all the time on fire, especially in electrical fires. You should never put water if there is a fire because of an electrical fault. You should always apply fire extinguishers or a blanket or something, sand for that matter. So sand will cut off the immediate oxygen supply to the fire. So he figured out that he did not know at that time that there is something called oxygen. He said that there is something that the fire uses which is important for mouse to live, and because fire keeps burning and utilizes all of that thing, mouse does not get that thing and dies. And the same thing which the fire utilizes, the plant provides. That's why when I put a candle and a mouse with a plant, the mouse does not die in that experiment that fast. It survives for longer time. Okay. Later on in 1774, he discovered that it's an element named Joseph Presley discovered oxygen, which actually proved that oxygen is very important for living systems to survive. Is this clear? Am I audible? Because no one is speaking.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. You can just read NCERT. You will get to know about this experiment about Joseph. So Joseph Presley for the first time proved that plants release oxygen. So what is the take home message? Plants release oxygen gas. So we got okay, plant release oxygen gas. But as I told you in science, whenever one question is answered, 10 more arise. Now the question was how? How do plants release oxygen? Where is this oxygen coming from? So before answering that, the other experiment that brought us closer to understanding photosynthesis was done by Julius von Sack. So Julius von Sack was another person in 1850s, 1854 to be specific. He showed that in an experiment that green parts of the plant, green parts produce glucose. Actually, he figured out that green parts of plant produce starch. You all do this experiment in schools. I don't know if you do it now or not, but when I was in school, they made us take a leaf, like when it is attached to the plant, cover one leaf with a black paper and keep the other as it is, and let the plant grow for 3-4 days. So one leaf is constantly covered for 3 or 4 days with black paper, and the other leaf is exposed to the sunlight. And after that, you do the iodine test for starch. Have you done that experiment in your schools? It's a simple experiment. Yes, no?
No.
You're saying yes, or you're, or am I not audible?
Sir, I'm saying no.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes.
Because the one, yes. Your voice is breaking. I don't know if it's my network or yours. I'm so sorry for this. I'm sorry, people, for this very. Okay, am I audible now, people?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Very good. So I'll just take a few more minutes. I think my network has become really patchy. I'm so sorry for that, everyone. Just 1 second. Let me share the screen. Yes, can you all see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I was just saying that Julian von Sack was the next in line who in 1854 figured out that green parts produce starch, which is glucose is one form of starch. So we got two pieces of puzzle. In less than 70 years, we figured out that plants produce oxygen. We also figured out that plants produce glucose. Okay, and how did he figure it out? So that experiment we will talk about in the next class, but just know that starch was first visible product of photosynthesis. Now, by now, we do not know what is photosynthesis and what's happening. We just know that there is some process happening because of which we are getting starch, and which starch specifically? Glucose. There is also some process happening because of which we are getting oxygen gas. So these two pieces of puzzle are present. Now, we don't know if they are coming from the same process or from different processes. Now, to join these, there was a person called Engelmann. Engelmann figured out that if you place green organisms containing chlorophyll in a specific light, they can do photosynthesis. Now we will take on from here in the next class. How about that? So we'll start exactly from here in the next class and go on to understand the details of photosynthesis. Okay, everyone?
Okay, sir.
All right, sir.
Okay, because I think we don't have time. Oh, the time is over actually. Okay, so I'll take it up in the next class. See you in the next class, everyone. And please go and read NCERT, because we are not exactly following the NCERT's path, but these experiments are also discussed there. Not very elaboratively, but they are there. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And one thing that I want you all to go and revise before you come to the next class is plastids. You have studied this in your junior classes, like when you studied cell in class 10th, I think you studied what are plastids, and specific one type of plastid which is called chloroplast. You know, there are many type of plastids: amyloplast, chromoplast, chloroplast. I just want you to focus on this. Okay, this is your homework. So I'll see you tomorrow, everyone. Take care.
So when is
Not
our
tomorrow.
class?
Sorry, not tomorrow. Next class is on Monday. It's Monday and Wednesday. Okay, so I'll see
Okay.
you all on Monday, and on Monday we will